Hi, everyone. Thank you, Arthur. I have a lot of questions on that piece that you guys are working on, even though I was next to it for a couple of days. It's fascinating. Reconstructing is kind of the opposite of archaeology in an interesting way, obviously in one of the meccas of archaeology. I'm Craig Copeland. I'm a partner at Pelli Clarke Partners. And our project this year we were kind of latecomers to this project. And I'll explain that during the course of this brief presentation. So I want to start, as everybody has been starting appropriately, with thanking a lot of people, starting with John and Omar, the creators of this amazing workshop. Mitch, I haven't seen Mitch today, but Mitch, Andy, of course, you guys have heard his name way too many times now, for good reason. Andrew and Peter, Boston Valley, of course. The University of Buffalo for hosting us here, literally. And all of you, the ACAW participants. It's always amazing to see the different ideas that are percolating and to see how each team navigates through the challenges that emerge inevitably. And also the wide variety of exploration, which I think is what is the touchstone of this particular workshop. So I'd like to thank all of you for that and for sharing your thoughts and also the exchange of ideas, mostly about terracotta, also about what to do after 10 o'clock at night. I'd like to give a little bit of background of how I came to this and personally. But actually, I want to make sure one very important notation. I don't know if you can see it. It's getting covered up by my picture. Is my colleague Peja Belenik. Oh, you can. Okay. Yeah. A note about Peja. Peja is an amazing designer, really good friend. Unfortunately, he came down with COVID right before this conference, and it's really unfortunate because he poured a tremendous amount of effort into this. And you'll see in the interim between the final bench and some of the first things I'm going to show you, he really played a fundamental role, and I'll try to remember to point those things out to you. But I hope Peja's doing all right. I hope. Let's see. So very briefly, this was actually my first deep dive into terracotta. This is a project in Lower Manhattan. It was a pioneering project, and a lot of that pioneer was the first LEED Platinum high-rise residential in the country, and it was for us, for our firm, it was quite a journey. One of the things that was a big part of this was the high performance curtain wall, and with that was the integrated terracotta. Boston Valley bid on this project and didn't get it, and I later found out why they didn't get it. And part of that was, even though you see that there's a lot of texture on this facade that we achieved, I'm pointing this out, the audience can't really see it, but this is all based upon the metallic clips that are holding the terracotta in place. So it's actually a very flat terracotta wall. And this is something that there are other manufacturers in terracotta that are very efficient at that, of doing these just very straightforward cookie cutter approaches. We were able to give it a little bit of finesse with the clipping system. My real introduction to Boston Valley is this project. which is the Central in Midtown Manhattan. And this has just been completed this year. And this was really my deep dive into what architectural terracotta could really be, and also how that process, working with Boston Valley, could really be a rich exploration in materiality, in architectural texture, character, and how integral all of that could be together. And it was from this that, while I was just starting this project, that I got invited to ACAW for the first year. And I was on the team, I think Shelby Doyle talked about this yesterday, but I was on the team with Shelby Doyle and this guy named Andy Brayman, you guys may have heard about as well. And it was actually, the team was named Radical Matter. Matter came from Andy's studio, and the Radical came from Josh, who was coming from the West Coast. I came late on this project, but watching a lot of the universities this week, it reminded me of that exploration that I got to get into with playing with green clay, wet clay, which really was a great introduction. Coming back to the present, about a year ago, we approached John Krause because we had been asked by this client on a project that was under construction to come up with a terrace design. And we thought, we're gonna have all of these elevated planters, and it'd be a great opportunity for us to create integrated benches that wrap around this. And we were playing off of the architecture itself. This architecture has a very expressive, flowing form, both on the outside and also on the inside. And we had worked with Boston Valley on this early on in the project. And one of those companies that does those cookie cutter projects snuck in and actually got this commission. So we felt horrible for not being able to continue that partnership on this project with Boston Valley. So when there was an opportunity to play off of all of these forms, this is actually the interior. We thought, well, let's look at some of the forms that we had developed with Boston Valley, and let's look at some of the opportunities that we were starting to look at with earlier designs for the interior for some of the benches. And that's what led to these designs. And these I want to put a shout out to Pedja, who really, again, poured a tremendous amount of time and effort into this. And the idea was to take the knowledge that we had learned from ACAW and apply it to a terracotta bench, thinking that we would expand the traditional. It's interesting, Arthur was talking about vessels just before this, because terracotta vessels for plants is something that we thought of right away. And we thought, well, how can maybe you can expand this idea of a terracotta vessel into a planter, and that planter, maybe it could be part of a lighting system for the plaza as well. And you could see we were integrating some of the same facade that we were studying and developing with Boston Valley a few years earlier. So while we were doing this, we were dealing with a lot of things you guys were working on this week, which was the idea of not just the terracotta, but the framing system. And this is important. For a moment, I'll point it out, but we started to think about later when we had to go a different route. So this was the idea for the terrace, and everything was going along smoothly until the spring of this year, when we found out that the contractor didn't tell us or Boston Valley that they didn't have an installer for like 3 months. They were just sitting, not telling us anything. The long story short is that in the end, the contractor and the owner felt that going with precast was going to fit within their schedule. And as you guys all know, as April was coming along and Mitch was telling you to finish all of your projects so that they could start the production here at Boston Valley, that's the critical time for Boston Valley. So their window of opportunity for fabrication really was reduced. So they couldn't meet that schedule. And to John's credit, while he was saying, I regret, but I need to tell you that I won't be able to do this within the schedule that the client is saying it needs to be done. I do have an idea. What if you guys came to ACAW and you developed this bench at ACAW? So I think John knew that we would say yes. So Pedge and I right away jumped on it, and we started looking at two approaches. And we thought, okay, well, if it's going to be ACAW, let's think of it in a bigger context. Let's not think of it specific to this project. Let's think of it as, is this something that can be translatable to other projects? And we started to think about this as a modular system. And we were looking, because we had been looking at extrusions, we looked at the idea that could there be a modular system where these are broken down into components that are extrusions that then could all be clipped together. But at the same time, because I had seen it not just here at Boston Valley, but also the year before, I had gone to a porcelain museum and factory, and I had seen slip cast, and I was just fascinated with slip cast. So I was asking the team, what if we did slip cast? And very quickly, as always, it was very helpful to have parameters of dimension. I mean, there are the parameters of dimension of a seat that we all know about, that there are certain heights and certain depths that are comfortable. And so those parameters I was pretty familiar with. But what I wasn't familiar with was what's the size of what's an efficient size for the production of a vessel that's going to be slip cast. And so the idea became, and you can see it at the top up here, to have a single seat made out of two components, to kind of have a bilaterally symmetrical unit. And so the next step was to look at what would be the singular pieces to develop, a bench, and maybe a variation of a convex and a concave seat, meaning a bench that had a back on it, and then to start to aggregate those into different configurations. So this is just one of those configurations. But we were also thinking about the possibility of light. And so that's how this started to evolve into creating this little lip you see on the front on each of these sides, so that there could potentially be a light across an LED light here that could light up the frontage of each of these chairs and benches. So this was the unit that emerged out of that process. And for those of you who have seen the vessel, this idea of the texturing was something that we wanted to emulate the wooden bench with this particular kind of texturing. And we thought, what better starting point than to work with what we had developed in the 2020 ACAW. So I know that at this point, all of you guys have seen this particular project, which was the 2020 project that we had developed, which was this idea of really showcasing the quality of the glazing through a series of textured and flat surfaces. And I know Andy talked about this yesterday about the glaze development. And here you can see again, and this is more for the people that are online that may not have seen these photos, but these were from 2020. And we thought that this idea of the texturing really created great opportunities for the glaze, but also in this case, great opportunities for the bench itself. And so we took and we made a little piece of the of the bench and had Andy come up with a couple of finishes. We thought maybe we should just for the sake of continuity, look at the same glaze that we had in 2020, but we really were already thinking more towards a glaze that had this kind of golden hue, something that would complement the planters and the plantings, something that would emulate that wooden materiality. And then internally, Boston Valley developed the way that you would actually put together the mold for each of these 2 unit pieces. And then on Monday, what was it, a month ago? Yeah. Monday this week, these arrived, or we arrived, and we got to see these and unpack them. And all of you guys, or most of you guys, came by, and I really appreciate that. And we were able to play with them in different configurations. I'm not going to say how long it took. I'll let John say that. But it was obviously it was all the hard work that Boston Valley had done in producing them so well that it was a matter of taking them off the crate and putting them on the paving or on the floor, and then the first assembly was done. But over the course of the week, it was fun to move these around, and I appreciate all of you, or a lot of you, came over and sat down on them and commented on them, and it was great to hear your feedback on that. And it was also great to be able to take these for a little bit of a road show on their way to this exhibit. We stopped by and we placed them out in front of the engineering building, and it was great to just to actually play with different variations there. But I think this particular view that's on the right is a good moment to talk about a couple of things about the production. The holes that you see here were not a part of the design per se, but they're part of the Boston Valley's strategy towards getting the firing to work efficiently. And one of the things that we talked about was the possibility for the next round on this particular series to maybe have fewer holes but larger holes you could actually get your hand into, so that there could be a securing device or a mechanism where you could actually put these on top, maybe one of 2, onto a platform or onto a hardscape that has threaded rods, and you could secure this into that. So that's kind of beginning to answer a question that might emerge. And then coming back to the one of the configurations, and I appreciate one of you, maybe multiple of you, said that you thought this looked like a sunflower, and I think that that's the beginning of something that can be beloved, is that you can see a number of different objects and different associations with it. And I really appreciate that we've had this time to kind of play with it together, and I look forward to continuing to play with this and with the design to evolve, even to the point where someone came in just before we had this presentation and asked me if the intention was to heat these things, and that this would be as a heater around campus. I thought that was fantastic as an idea. So I just want to thank again everybody, all of you first and foremost, and all of the facilitators for this workshop.